Hello and welcome in to the Sport.Fun Strategy Show. I am Andrew Laird, joined, I was going to say as always, on the Strategy Show. Sean, it's a little bit of throwback here. Here's PSU fans too. He and I have done a few strategy shows before. Not so much for Sport.Fun. What's up?
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's a bit of a blast from the past. You get stuff back. Have you ever looked into who has done the most shows with you? Is it Black then me? Like, it's got to be one of the two of us, I assume.
Probably, although I've done a lot with Harry recently that maybe I haven't looked, but you're right. I should do that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like who, like where the number count is for you in terms of like who is the highest up. I would assume it's got to be me or Black, but yeah, I mean, if you've done a lot with Harry over the last year, it definitely could be that because I don't think we've done a consistent show over the last year.
Right.
And you and Black have still done Sober Andrews consistently, so it's got to be Black ahead of me.
For sure.
It's just a matter of if like Harry would be ahead of me also, I would assume.
Yeah. I'll let me do some accounting on that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just interested. I feel like that would be an interesting one to come up with. But yeah, no, good to be back. I think we're going to try to do this a little bit more consistently. I'm getting out of my busy season, so hopefully that is available.
Of course it's available. Of course. College football.fun?
I never know. I mean, right?
Who knows? Who knows? Just before we came on, you were like, Laird, how come you haven't sent me a screenshot of the NFL market going up? So there you go. It's going up.
No, 4.75. Yeah, no, Laird will like just do random market things, and he likes to poke fun at the NFL. So whenever the NFL goes down, he'll like post a NFL down graph, and never when it goes up, he never is like, oh, here it is.
Absolutely outrageous accusation there because it's always two screenshots. It's this one.
Yes. And but he only ever posts it when the soccer one is going up because he likes soccer more than the NFL.
I just have a lot more in it.
He's like a sportist. He likes the NFL more and doesn't like the NFL. So like he just treats the NFL poorly,
I think that's fair. I was going to say like that's not, but you're completely fair about that.
Laird, your Jets have the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. I mean, the hype should be coming for you immensely.
Yeah. So I've learned over my life that there's no reason to get excited about Jets high draft picks. Like Zach Wilson was the last one. And I was like, oh yeah, that didn't work out that well. And so I have no confidence that they'll do anything smart, especially after what you told me that they're now thinking about trying to move up.
I think that was a joke, but it would be very bad.
It would be very Jetsy move.
Yes, it would be.
To try to get a team that has no talent anywhere and loads of draft picks and be like, you know what, let's just get rid of all the draft picks except one and take the worst guy or the best guy at a position that is the worst position they've depth in decades.
Yeah, it's a weird thing too, because this should be just an in general theory, I think, for teams. If your team's really bad, which I think we can safely say the Jets are, you have lots of holes. Well, how do you fill lots of holes? Lots of draft picks.
Yeah.
So when you have lots of holes and then you trade away all of those holes or all of those draft picks for like one specific draft pick, it usually ends up terrible because that pick is not going to be good enough to overcome. The NBA, you can kind of get away with like 1 or 2 players being like a key guy and like getting that guy kind of makes sense. The NFL, like you can't go out there and draft a quarterback who's a stud and just have him get obliterated by a bad offensive line all the time. It just doesn't really work. So not saying you don't need a quarterback also, but like typically you see the teams that start elsewhere with like left tackles, defensive ends, defensive pass rushers. Those teams build better than the team that just mortgages a future for like a quarterback and everything else is a disaster.
So the funny thing about the Jets situation is they're doing the right thing right now. Like they have holes everywhere. They trade Sauce Gardner and who was the other guy? Quentin Williams. You get all these draft picks and it's like, oh, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
And then it would be very Jetsy to be like, let's take all of those things that we should have done, that we should be doing, and plow them all into Mendoza, who is probably not the quarterback they need. All while the quarterback they had is in the Super Bowl.
True. Very true. And was very good last year too, which also like, I mean, at least the Jets sort of get off. The Jets kind of get off of that. Like they don't get the blame for that because of what the Vikings did in getting rid of him.
Yeah. Well, I guess. I guess. I I was a Darnold stan myself though, so like it burns even more. Anyway, Jimmer's looking for some fun token chart analysis. We were talking about this before. You were like, hey, maybe it'll moon on Friday whenever.
I don't know. I don't see, like, here's the thing, and you kind of agree with me, and I know Jimmer does too. I'm not just sitting there staring at the charts 24/7. Like, my whole view is longer term with stuff, and I've already made the decision that I'm like riding until a while. And so for that reason, like, it doesn't really matter to me what the price of the fund token is, what the price of the charts are, because realistically, if you're playing the long-term game, if stuff is low now at this date and time and you can accumulate at low price points, that's great. So, and if stuff goes poorly and it goes down, it doesn't matter. It's already like it goes down. So I don't know. For me, it's not something that I'm concerned about overly. Like, I'm not looking at it day in, day out, like all the time. Like, I remember back in the day, the SORA stuff, like, oh my God, I'd be following the prices like every second. Like, I was on top of everything. I'm not taking that approach, which I like, because I don't want to devote that much time, like, and effort. Like, I think we all devoted a lot of time and effort elsewhere into SoRare that I don't necessarily want to spend 28,000 hours a day looking at stuff like that. So yeah, no, I don't know. Like, to me, I got an airdrop that was still hefty, and even with the price being declined, it's still large, and that's fine. And if I need to accumulate some, it's at a lower price point than it was. And same thing with shares. Like, shares of players, especially for NFL, which we'll talk about today, I'm looking to accumulate and stack going into next season. And if I can stack in a way which I think I can stack over the course of the off season, I think I'm going to position myself in a really nice spot for the beginning of next season that I will be more than happy with.
Who are your top like 5 NFL holdings? If you don't
Are we
mind?
talking about dollar amount or share amount?
Dollar amount.
Okay, dollar amount, Jackson Smith and Jigba, which I don't know if that will hold. Josh Allen, Trey McBride, Puka Nacua, and Drake May. If I remove Smith and Jigba and Drake May, and if I remove people from like the game that's still happening, it would be Josh Allen, Trey McBride, Puka, Caleb Williams, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Those would be like the top $5 amount guys I own.
Are you like taking Smith and Jigba and May out because you wouldn't own that much if they weren't in the Super Bowl?
I would probably own the amount of them that I own, but I think that their price has a potential to go down after the Super Bowl. Yeah. But it's really interesting. I really am not sure exactly what's going to happen with the Super Bowl guys, which we'll talk about that too, because I think there's a lot of merit. Like, there is one player that I probably wouldn't own as much of if they weren't in the Super Bowl, and that's Stephon Diggs. But I've actually just earlier today, I moved some Diggs into Smith and Jigba because I'm a lot more comfortable holding Smith and Jigba than I am Diggs.
I definitely thought you were going to say Hunter Henry.
No, I've not owned any of the tight ends, which another topic we can talk about. I have avoided the tight ends during the playoffs. I did not see the merit to holding them.
Is it just because you just don't want to hold them next year?
Well, so we can go into that.
Yeah, let's go tight ends. Why not?
Okay, so let's talk about the situation here and with the playoffs. First off, I thought the playoffs and the way that the market reacted in the playoffs was awesome. I don't know, you don't follow it day in, day out during the games and stuff, but watching the market during these games was wild.
Yeah.
Like, the games, especially the games where the lead went back and forth, you were seeing like a 20% dip into like a 30% rise, into a 40% dip, into a 60% rise, into a 35% dip. And like, it was nuts. People were going nuts during the playoffs, and I loved it. And it was great. And I think that the intended goal of what the playoffs and the prize pools were, I think really made that look good. And I think that the exact reasonings of the playoffs is sort of how I wanted it. So we'll talk about that. Then I'll get into the tight end portion of things. But like, for example, Kenneth Walker, I believe, went from 3% of total 1 TP of running backs during the regular season, 3%. He is going to finish at least at 35% or 39%. And he only played 3 games in the playoffs. Yeah. When he gets first and either first or second, most likely first because competition's weak. But I think it really was a good strategy thing. Like another thing, like Khalil Shakir, I think I bought $300 or $400 of Khalil Shakir in like December, and he added 20% of the TP during the playoff run because he got first and second. I think I ended up getting like $500 in rewards on him, and then I also was able to sell him if I wanted to for like $350. So it was a really cool strategic plan of what to do. So Kenneth Walker, great.
Walker, yeah.
So I think I bought 50,000-ish shares of Kenneth Walker at 0.004 or 0.005, 0.006. Because I did similar with him as like what I did with Khalil Shakir. So
yeah, you bought your guys early.
I bought my guys early. I bought him in like December. But it did run into some problems because then towards the end of the season, I had too many players and I benched guys that were winning, and that sucked. But yeah, so I bought Kenneth Williams, I think, or Kenneth Walker at like 3x lower the price of what he is now. And I did the same thing with Shear, but like I also did similar with other dudes who lost in the first round of the playoffs. Like I have a boatload of Brian Thomas. Yeah. And luckily he got me 2% of rewards, which actually or 2 or 3%, which actually paid off decently because I own so many shares of him. But if he were still in the playoffs, he'd probably be at 0.101 or 0.012, and I would have like 4x my money along with getting a boatload of TP percentages on the way. So I thought the way the playoffs worked was really fascinating, and I thought it worked very well. So I was actually quite happy with that. But yeah, so in terms of the tight ends, I looked at the tight ends, and the guys that made the playoffs were, I would say, not the guys that I necessarily wanted to hold long term. It was just guys that I was like, I'm not super in love with these guys. And so I was looking at things, and like the price, people really gravitated towards the locked in TP, right?
Yeah.
Like once there was 3 tight ends after the first round, the prices of the tight ends were obnoxious. But if we look at the other tight ends, like I don't see tons of a gap between like Hunter Henry and a healthy. We'll use Kincaid. So like let's say Hunter Henry is like a better version of Dalton Kincaid. I mean, slightly better, like let's call him 0.01. Well, there's a big drop off from what his price is. And I will actually say, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's one player who is still playing in the playoffs who has like gone down significantly from like what they were at peak, and that's Hunter Henry. He was at 0.2025 at his peak or something, and he has come down because people were able to move into other guys. Now, other players will also have come down a little bit as well, but for me, it was one of those things. I just didn't think the TP I would generate from owning him in the playoffs was going to warrant the dump off if he lost. And for that reason, I was just not very comfortable into it. I did not buy any Dalton Kincaid for similar reasons. I did buy George Kittle before he ruptured his Achilles, which like that was unfortunate. But
yeah, I was going to say the drop off with Henry has happened anyway, and he's still in it. Like
correct. And if he lost, like I think if he lost any of the previous games, like if the Bills were still playing, Dalton Kincaid would be his price and Hunter Henry would be Dalton Kincaid's price. So like that was one of those things with I tried to look into the TP. So good example, last round when Denver played New England, Cortland Sutton was 0.01 and Henry was 0.025. Well, if you look, Henry's actually gone down more than Cortland Sutton despite winning. And it's not like Cortland Sutton was a lock to lose. Like Denver very easily could have won that game. Yeah. So I actually had a boatload of Cortland Sutton. I had a boatload of Sutton. I actually just moved a little bit of it today because I didn't want quite as much as I had. I moved him into like some Bijan, into some other players for the offseason. But I had a lot of him and a lot of Bo Nix, because I was a lot more comfortable with one, holding them if they lose, and two, I thought their drop off would be a lot less significant if they lost, which I mean, good indication it kind of was. Like he dumped 25% because he lost. Hunter Henry dropped 25% and he won.
And he won, yeah.
It was like that. Like I mean, if Hunter Henry lost, Hunter Henry would probably be at 0.01 right now. If Cortland Sutton won, he would probably be at 0.015, 0.0175. So I just thought that there was a lot better opportunities to be into some of the other players than the tight ends.
So if you obviously have a ton of shares of Trey McBride. He was in your top 5. I assume obviously that wasn't a playoff move, but you think that you'll end up with more value out of McBride than any of the other tight ends?
Yeah, I think that I just would much rather have. That's why I think the offseason and everything is pretty interesting. And I think just in general, if you go into the Discord, everybody has a different approach to what they're doing and what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And none of them are wrong. Like, they all have a lot of merit to it. Well, all right, some of them are probably wrong. Like, some of them are probably wrong. But you have a lot of different approaches, and I think there's all merit. Like, do you focus on TP during the Super Bowl? Well, if you bought Kenneth Walker at 0.07 a month and a half ago, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, he's generated, like, I'm pretty sure on a lot of the players, $200 worth of player shares pays off at least $100 in TP if they win. Maybe more, depending on what the player is or who the player is. And you've accumulated for weeks. Like, Kenneth Walker is going to be at least 32% of rewards during the playoffs. That's a lot. So if you did that approach, it's great. If you are focusing on the offseason TP, that's also very productive. I think you can do a very good job of that. If you want to then focus on players that are cheap, that maybe did not have a great season. I'll give a couple examples. Justin Jefferson. I thought Justin Jefferson at one point was like, he was priced as like wide receiver 18. And realistically, he's a top 3 or 4 receiver in the league probably. And you were able to just get him at a super, super cheap price point. Like, I think, for example, I think you'd probably agree with this. It's a little bit tricky because obviously his quarterback situation. But, like, I think it's probably pretty realistic that Jefferson should be priced in the Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, CeeDee Lamb range. But he's not. And the reason he's not is because he just doesn't have the TP from the offseason that these other players have. So, like, do you maybe sacrifice some offseason TP in order to position yourself in Justin Jefferson? So, for example, I'll actually give a good example. I actually sold Justin Jefferson around his peak because I think his peak was about 3 or 4 weeks left in the season. And at that point, he had no TP. And I just decided, I'm like, I can move into other guys that are more stable, that have better offseason TP, and then reassess. So I think I sold him around, let me see, I can pull it up real quick, see what I sold him at, because I thought, my business on him was actually good business. I've done plenty of bad business, but so I sold all my Justin Jefferson shares at 0.0148. I sold about 50,000 shares at 0.0148. And I bought back in a bunch of shares at 0.0692.
00692.
0.00692. So I was able to sell a good chunk of what I was basically able to sell my shares of him for like 700 gold. And then I was able to basically buy back more shares of him for like 400 gold, which I was obviously thrilled with. And that was kind of my intention. Like, so what I've kind of done is I am focusing my strategy. I'm curious what yours is. My strategy has been to position myself into guys that I am comfortable holding going into next season. For example, Travis Kelce. Every time I have packed Travis Kelce, I have sold him immediately because I just am not interested in, if he does retire, eating that. So I have not had I have no interest in him. I will not own shares of him longer than it takes me to sell them ever. But I was willing to come back into Justin Jefferson. So now I feel pretty confident with my Justin Jefferson situation.
So what is it about 2026 Justin Jefferson that you're more confident about than 2025 results?
I think he had a little bit better end of the season. I think that there was at least some moments towards the end of the season that were good. I don't think he's going to be willing to settle for the shit that happened this year. So I think that there's some merit to like there's potential to get traded if something comes out. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. I think JJ McCarthy should improve. It's hard to get much worse than what he was this past year. So I think that there's going to be some opportunities for some improvement. And like even towards the end of the season, you did see it. You saw a solid game right towards the end, the 21.4 performance. I think there's some good performances to go upwards, and his talent it's not in question. It's more so his quarterback play. And I'm hopeful that their quarterback play will at least be improved upon next season.
So my introduction of Jefferson in the question is basically, if quarterback play is so important, what makes Jefferson that much better than Garrett Wilson?
Well, so funny that you brought that name up, Laird. I literally was hovering over him today and am considering buying him as well for similar reasons. Like I actually, you know what, Laird, I will do it right now.
Just do it. Let's go.
Let's do it. I just bought 50,000 shares of Garrett Wilson right now. I literally was
what does that cost? $3?
It was $255. I got 50,000 shares of Garrett Wilson. I was literally looking at that 2 hours ago, completely without any of this discussion at all.
I have no idea what the Jets end up doing. Obviously, if they end up with Mendoza, then you're just like, who knows? I don't think they end up with him anyway.
No.
But I think you could make the argument that they would have definitely traded Wilson had he been healthy when they traded Williams and Gardner, just because he's by far the most valuable player on that team.
Yeah, I can't see Wilson being worse.
Right.
Well, although Laird, we say all this, Justin or Fields was given a Pro Bowl invite. So you had a Pro Bowl quarterback on your team. I'm not sure what your issue is here.
In fact, he was so good, Sean, he turned down the Pro Bowl.
True. He was too good to go to the Pro Bowl. Speaking of the Browns had 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks this year and just couldn't hit it together. I mean, what are we doing? But anyways, no, I tend to agree. I mean, I think that Garrett Wilson is obviously very talented. I think he's one of the better players on the team. It's hard to envision him getting worse. So let's say he gets traded, because here's the thing with a receiver like that. A lot of the time, if they get traded, it's typically into decent spots, because a team typically isn't going to give up. Typically, to get a guy like Garrett Wilson, you're going to have to give up pretty decent draft capital. You're not doing that unless you're a pretty decent offense that is really looking for that type of player. It can happen, obviously, but more often than not, I think that he ends up in a decent spot.
Right. Like bad teams don't trade draft picks for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Because they need those draft picks. The Jets might do it, but they already have him, so it's okay.
But yeah, you would expect like the Chiefs to come through.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like he goes to Kansas City, and all of a sudden you're like, that's a bit of an upgrade going from Justin Fields to Patrick Mahomes, even though Mahomes has been a shell of himself for a while.
Correct.
And he's coming.
Or like the Bills. The Bills are going to need a receiver. I don't think they would do it because it's in division. But anyways, so yeah, like Rico Dowdle. I think that was a guy that was brought up internally in one of the chats that we're in, of like his offseason TP is pretty good with his price. He also is very adamant that he wants to be the number 1 running back somewhere this upcoming season. So I think that there's some merit to he goes to a spot and is RB1 for a team. That said, it's probably not going to be a very good team because I don't think he's amazing. But it doesn't necessarily matter if you're on an amazing team. If you get 20 plus touches a game, you are going to have outs to be up there relatively frequently.
Any starting running back has an opportunity to make the top 5.
Correct.
Are there any guys on the higher end that you were adding or thinking of adding? Obviously, like Puka's one of your highest ones, and Smith and Jigba into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I want to get some more Puka, but I don't really want to buy it right now. I'm part of my hopes is which we've talked about. I've sort of positioned myself where I have the amount of each player that I want for the most part, and then I expect to stack it as the off season goes. Was kind of my plan. But I would like a little bit more of him. I wanted more Bijan. I actually think Bijan has a pretty good chance to be RB1 next year. I think the spots. So I did actually move a little bit of Cortland Sutton into Bijan earlier today. I mean, Trey McBride, I have a lot of Trey McBride. Otherwise, I'd be looking to add him. I think he's really good. I would like to add there's probably a few guys in like, I wouldn't say the top tier. It's more so like that slightly below. The names that I would see that I probably would have interest in adding more of would be Jonathan Taylor, Amon St. Brown, Brock Bowers, and CeeDee Lamb. Like that's kind of the grouping in which I'm thinking I would like to add more if I could.
I couldn't be happier that you said Jonathan Taylor as I look down and he's now my biggest holding.
There you go. Now, what has been your plan between the playoffs and the offseason? Because I think you had a bit different of a plan than what I had.
So I basically didn't want to risk the playoffs of buying guys. I did it with Bo Nix before. Who did they beat before the Patriots?
Bills.
Right. So I added Nix before that game. I had a bunch of Josh Allen anyway, but I think I actually sent this message to like our group chat that at the time it felt like of the teams that were left, Bo Nix had the highest ceiling. Like if they won, I think people just didn't expect them to win. And then of course he gets hurt and it's like, you know, you get the injury cover, but we know that quarterback injury covers aren't as good as running back injury covers. And so that one like didn't end up paying off. But I basically just didn't want to gamble on guys possibly losing. And even before the playoffs started, like I loaded up on St. Brown and I was like, oh, that'll be nice for the playoffs. And then they fucking blow it. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I usually have like guys that I want. I'm looking at, so I bought a ton of Drake May. I think when he initially hit the market, and I absolutely hate the Patriots. And so that was more of like an emotional hedge than anything. But like my top 5 right now are Taylor, May, McBride. I bought a ton of James Cook before the playoffs, expecting them to make a run, and then Jamar Chase. Okay. And like Chase is the one that I was like, he's actually not as cheap as I would hope to get in, but also he's also one that could easily be like wide receiver 1 next season. And so I don't mind having a bunch of Chase.
Yeah, he's one of those that like, you know what their offense is going to look like next year. And you know that the reason he was not very good this year was because Burrow was hurt. Right. So there's a very clear path up. And like, I mean, even when you look at it, let me pull up the offseason TP for them. Like he still is going to be wide receiver 3 by a decent margin on anyone else. And that's with like his quarterback missing at least half the season.
Right.
So I tend to agree. I mean, my plan was I set a number in my head of like, this is the amount of shares I want of every key player. And then there are some players that I'm like, okay, these are going to be my cheap dudes who, if they go nuts, I'm going to be, as you refer to it, as the Baron of that player. And I want to have a ass load of their shares. Because realistically, we did see it this year. If you have like just an absolute shitload of shares of one player that is a very low-owned, low-priced player, and they don't even need to win. They just need to get in the top 5. Like they get in the top 5 and you're just like, okay, you just printed massively.
I feel like we see that more on the football side than NFL though. Like, is there an example of a super low owned NFL guy that like went off? I can't think of one.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some. We would have to look at it. Let me look at the rewards as the season went, because it definitely happened. Like there was definitely times in which it happened, but it's a matter of who. All right,
I'll also just add like this. My plan gets thrown off immediately where I'm like, maybe I should add more Chase. Maybe I should add some more Puka. Maybe I should add more McBride. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I just bought like 20,000 shares of Laird McConkey. And I'm like, oh man, what am I doing?
So a good example was when Teterow McMillan won in like week 13 or 14. Like he literally only got a top 5 one time in the season, but he won. And at that time he was incredibly low priced. And that was a big response. But any of these NFL guys, like there are guys down here, Brian Thomas, Jalen Waddle, Bucky Irving, your boy Laird McConkey, or Maxime's boy Laird McConkey, Garrett Will. Like there are guys that are down here that in certain situations can pop off. Like, I mean, Khalil Shakir was just an absolute print fest for me towards the end of the season. Like,
yeah, but like that wasn't full like that's playoff Shakir.
Correct, but it was still, he was so low priced and low owned that he was the week he got second. Like, I think he got second and then first. He got second, and I had like 40,000 shares, and I think I got like 12,000 TP off him or something obnoxious. Like, it was an obnoxious amount of TP off him.
But what's the reason to own Shakir over Hunter Henry?
Because he's 3x less price. His
well,
price
now he is.
4x.
But like when
Shakir hasn't moved. If you look at Shakir's, this is pretty much what Shakir was at his peak, I'm pretty sure. No, never mind. He got up there. He got up there right before their loss. But like, again, you could have sold him up there too. Like, he went, the idea with Shakir was that he had room to go upwards, whereas like Henry did not. Henry, in my opinion, had room to go down, whereas Shakir had room to exceed. But like, yeah, let me see. I'm trying to see what so I had a bunch of Stephon Diggs in the playoffs. I wish I could go back a bit further. You can only go back so far towards the end of the season, but there's definite moments where some guys that are like lower owned just like really pop off and really win you a lot of TP. It's just in general. Obviously, it's all relative to like what you put in on stuff and what you play, but relatively speaking, there's some players that you could really make. Like, here's the thing, and I don't think people have fully grasped this yet. Brian Thomas, all right? You buy $200 of Brian Thomas today. Let's just say you buy $200 of Brian Thomas. That would get you 60,000 shares. If he finishes in the top 5 one time, pays off those shares.
Well, it depends on what the other shares are, but when he does it, meaning
but like let's say it doesn't pay off the two, that means his price has gone up significantly or has gone up, and you have those shares of him at now a better price point too.
I don't think it. I mean, by the time we get to next season, with how many people are like winning shares in the off season, if they're holding them, like that doesn't move the price at all. It just adds to the supply.
Well, yes, but I'm saying like there are still situations like Brian Thomas, like any of these cheap guys, realistically speaking, I think if you buy like $200 worth and they realistically can put together any semblance of a, like, let's say you buy $200 of anyone on the last page, and they get 10% worth of TP over the course of the season, you're going to pay off that easily, I think. So it's like one of those things, like they don't need to Puka Nacua. If you're going to buy Puka Nacua, you need Puka Nacua to get a good chunk of TP over the course of the season. You can't have Puka Nacua put up 20%. Like, you need him to be in the top 5 all the time, get you your TP week in, week out. But also, that said, like, that's kind of what he does.
I was going to say, it's exactly what he does.
Yeah. There's reasons for owning him. The thing is like the risk on Puka Nacua is, okay, Puka Nacua gets hurt. That's not good. A lot of the lower tier guys, a lot of them are lower tier guys because they maybe are in rotational splits or they're on shares that it's just not consolidated. If they see injuries, like, it can really help them. Even to them, it can really help them. So I think there's a lot more upside with a lot of guys down low. Also, like you said, I think for most positions, running back gets the most benefit from an injury cover, because almost always if one of the running backs goes down, it really provides a lot more work for whoever comes up. Whereas I would say some receivers get a benefit. If there are certain receivers that go down, the next guy up is like really good for right now. That said, we are looking into evolving injury cover a little bit to work with how we're planning the game to progress. But like CeeDee Lamb, he gets hurt, you get George Pickens.
Yeah.
You're happy with that, because that might even increase his target volume, might be better than CeeDee Lamb with him healthy. And then quarterbacks, there's one quarterback that is definitely an improvement, at least this year, won't be next year. But like this year, if Love got hurt, Malik Willis is a better fantasy player than Love.
Do I remember correctly that Garrett Wilson's only top 5 was an injury cover?
Possibly. Let me check real quick. Because I have it marked. Wilson had 2. No, actually, both of Wilson's top 5s were at the beginning of the season before he got hurt week 1 and week 3 that were not on the platform.
Gotcha.
But, I mean, that goes to show, like, he was healthy at the beginning of the season and they were a little bit better, which led for him to produce more and before he got top 5s.
Yeah. Are there any guys other than Travis Kelce and you're just like, I'll never own these shares?
I would not own any Isaiah Pacheco. I have no interest in him. Let me look through the list. That room isn't good. He hasn't been good. I'm just not very interested. Alvin Kamara, I would own Alvin Kamara at his price point. Like,
I was just looking at his price. It's like
for him,
it's wild how low that is.
Oh, it's so low. I don't think he got no TP, so you're not getting any TP from him this year. But if he's somewhere next year, I think realistically, and this is probably sad, you're hoping you get him, and you're hoping he gets
injury cover,
and you get injury cover. Truly, because like if you look, the last 2 games, he got 17, 16 points with an injury cover. That's probably right on the edge of getting you into the top 5, right? Like he got 4th. He got 4th on the last week of the season. I guess did I not realize that? It's saying he got 4th. I don't know if that's accurate. I'd have to look back through stuff.
That doesn't seem
right because I'm pretty sure he did not get any TP. I think he was one of 3 guys that did not get any TP. But I can look at running backs for that week and see if he was in the top 5. Just to verify that. So that was week 18, I think.
Yeah.
He
certainly didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, he did not. Actually, is that pulling? Yeah. So anyways, I think that's off a little bit. I'll have to look into that a little bit later.
Was it a tie? And he finished like 6th?
It might have been a tie where he finished 6th, but I don't think there was ties where it was multiple people. But I don't have it in a way that I can easily sort it. But he was very close. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Actually, it might have been. There might have been a tie. There was definitely a tie between Bucky Irving and Derrick Henry. I'm looking for Alvin Kamara. So he got 15.6. Derrick Henry got 15.6 that week.
And using like the last 5 average, there's no way Kamara.
Yeah. Actually, so I think they're missing one. I think that he finished tied for 5th, which left him 6 on tiebreaker.
Right.
On my quick perusal here. So, but anyways, yeah, I think that there's like, I would own him. The couple guys I would not own, I think I would not own Isaiah Pacheco. That's a guy I wouldn't own. I'm actually surprised he's over people. To me,
You're surprised he's what?
I'm surprised he's like more expensive than a few people. Like that's just a guy that I'm just not interested in at all.
Yeah.
I would not own Kelce. Like I said, the second I've gotten any Kelce share, I sold it immediately. Those are probably the only 2 I would not own any, which is funny. They're both Chiefs. But I don't know if there's anyone else that I wouldn't own. There's obviously people I wouldn't own at like their current price points, right?
Sure.
Like, but there's not anyone else that I would outright not own.
What's your what did you like? You obviously prepared for the playoffs kind of back in December, I think you said.
Yeah.
How much of your spending, of your non-playoff guy spending, was off-season TP versus just getting ready for 2026?
I would say all of my stuff was kind of hybrid focused, right? I focused on the playoffs. My plans were to sell guys as the playoffs have gone. If it looked like they were going to lose, or if they were going to lose and their price was going to go down, which we obviously saw when players lost, they typically would nosedive. So I was trying to be active during the games and sell guys off as they lost if it looked like they were not going to get TP.
Yep.
So, which burned me and also helped me in situations. Like I sold off J.K. Dobbins in the week they won against Green Bay because I had a flight and I wasn't going to have internet access on the flight. So I sold like before I got on the flight, and then I landed and they had came back and his price was so low that I ended up buying back, and then they won and they shot up and I was like, perfect. I made up for it at least. But I tried to do a dual focus between the playoffs and the next season. more so than the off-season TP.
Okay.
And my viewpoint is on it was that the guys that I'm probably moving into also have like a decent amount of off-season TP anyways, but I did not optimize off-season TP for the most part. I did buy some, I guess that's not fair. Like I know DK Metcalf was very high up on the like value chart with what you would get from him if he for the off-season TP perspective. So I did buy a few guys that were good in that spot. Javonte Williams, another one I did buy, but like they were so cheap, like you could buy them and it wasn't really, didn't cost you much. Like getting 50,000 shares of Javonte Williams just isn't going to cost you that much. So I though primarily focused on like guys I want to be into next year, knowing that they also got some TP to some extent as well. What did you do? What was your primary focus? I know you said you didn't focus on the playoffs. So did you focus on off-season TP or more so moving into next year?
I almost completely ignored off-season TP, to be honest. Like I looked at the numbers a little bit, but ultimately it was like, there's no way for me to project what the market is going to do. And so based on like when TP starts getting distributed. And so I was just kind of like, I think a lot of the guys that I like for next season were going to get off-season TP anyway. So it's not like I was buying loads of guys. Like I didn't buy a load of Jefferson. Maybe I don't know. I didn't have a lot of like Garrett Wilson. I know they have some, but like if you're going to buy guys specifically for off-season TP, you're probably not targeting those two. And so I think, I just I can't keep going back and forth on not whether it's like the right strategy, but I just have no concept of like what the market is going to look like at the beginning of next season when presumably we have more players added through scouting. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of the draft, like how many draft picks are going to be on the platform. I probably don't go for many of them, if any, but like, I don't know, but it's kind of like, I look at prices now and I'm like, that seems reasonable, having no clue if it's going to be, if prices will be 3x in July and August or a third.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of like, what am I comfortable with, like actual money wise in these players going in and hoping that I can just win from that next season.
Well, a big thing too for me with the off-season TP and the view on that is like the off-season TP is changing based on how many people buy into those players.
Right.
And that was something I looked at and I was like, all right, so all of a sudden I buy DK Metcalf and then 3 other people also jump into DK Metcalf and then DK Metcalf drops from like the best value to like the 30th best value. So for me, it's like really a thing of, do I want to own DK Metcalf? Because if I do not want to own DK Metcalf, I'm not as interested in that. If I'm like, okay, I actually am okay owning DK Metcalf. I think there's potential for their offense to be more favorable towards him because it's hard not to be with Arthur Smith's leaving because he's terrible. And in that scenario, like I'm okay owning DK Metcalf. Not like I don't want to own like as much DK Metcalf as I own of, let's say, like Puka Nacua, but I'm okay owning some DK Metcalf. So then I'm in it. But then I look at it and like, let's hypothetically say Isaiah Pacheco is the best option. Do I want to own Isaiah Pacheco? No, I don't really want to be there. So all of a sudden I'm sitting there and it's like, all right, I buy into Pacheco, then a few others. Then all of a sudden he's not a good value. Mm-hmm. Do I really want to own Isaiah Pacheco? And so for that reason, like I kind of just shifted my focus to like, I want to own Josh Allen. I'm fine owning more shares of Josh Allen, maybe sacrifice some TP, but at least have a player in which I am interested in owning. So a question for you in regards to this, because I really don't know how this is going to work. What do you think is going to happen with the players that are still playing in the Super Bowl?
Like once the game starts? Or after the game, I mean?
Yeah, because so here's the thing, and this is why I thought it's interesting, and it's an interesting kind of little tweak with it, is what happens with, let's say, Hunter Henry. Because if you sell him after the season is over, like hypothetically, if you're holding him now, you're going to hold him till the game, after the game, get your TP. But like, what do you do after that? Because if you sell him, you can't move him into other people and get off-season TP because the snapshot is at the beginning of the Super Bowl. So do you, and then also flip side of like, do you just hold Hunter Henry through the whole offseason? Because Hunter Henry's offseason TP is going to be pretty decent, but a lot of it is dictated on like what other people do after the Super Bowl. Because I think one thing we can agree with the guys that are still playing are bloated to some extent.
Sure.
I think that all 6 guys that are still playing are at least bloated 20%. But do they sell after the season? Because then you don't get any off-season TP.
I think you'll see like I was about to say, I think you'll see a bigger sell off on like Henry than May.
I think that's fair.
Because I think people just are comfortable owning May next season.
Correct. I think that's very fair.
But that kind of assumes that the amount that May has gone up is because, like how much of that is just because he keeps playing.
Correct.
And so where is he like comparatively to the other quarterbacks?
He is ahead of all of them. Josh Allen is second. And then after Josh Allen, you have to go down to Caleb Williams, or Dak Prescott, who like they're both up there because of the offseason TP, which to be fair, Drake May will be slightly ahead of all of them after this game. So I think in theory, he should probably fall somewhere between Josh Allen and Dak Prescott, hypothetically.
Because of offseason TP, though.
Well, no, I think he's a young MVP talent type of quarterback. Like I would be fine holding him, right?
So I understand that. I guess the way that I'm thinking of it, if we didn't have this season and we're going into next season,
yeah,
and we're buying shares fresh, and we want to buy shares based on who's going to finish in the top 5 every week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really buy him over Dak?
Probably not.
Right. Like I'm thinking,
but he's a lot younger than Dak. He is on the upswing in theory. Like maybe the answer is maybe.
Like I think you're more likely to buy Allen, Dak, Herbert, Williams, maybe Lamar.
Yeah, but maybe not. The only one that I would say you for sure would own over him is Josh Allen. That's the only one I would feel confident. Absolute. I think anybody could make a realistic argument for like any of the 6 names you just said on why they should be second. But again, that's like so here's my thing, and this is something I talked to Jimmer about on the side. Like if let's say Drake May drops 25%. Let's say he drops 25% after the Super Bowl. Would it have not just made more sense to like be into Caleb Williams, who's half his price right now, and then just make up the TP you don't get in the Super Bowl during the offseason TP portion? Like, does that make more sense? Because I think there's some merit to that. I have basically where I'm at on the guys that are still playing, I have the amount of Drake May I want to have. So I'm not touching Drake May. The running backs, I maybe have a bit more of the running backs than I would want to have if they weren't playing in the Super Bowl. Maybe. But like Kenneth Walker's interesting to me after Charbonnet tore his ACL because like if he is actually a workhorse running back, he is a top 5 or 6 running back. If he's not a top 10 running back. Receivers, I have as much Puka or as much JSN as I want. Diggs, I have more Diggs than I want. So like I'm considering like, do I move Diggs into some other guys that I would rather just offset it some? And then obviously, as we talked about Henry, I just have not touched the tight ends. I viewed the tight ends as like ticking time bombs and like did not want them.
Except for McBride and Bowers, I think.
No, I'm talking about the playoff tight ends.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
The tight ends that made the playoffs, I viewed them as like ticking time bombs. I was like, I'm good on that. I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm trying to think of like, I guess the way that I guess Drake May statistically was better than I give him credit for. I guess the way that I was looking at it, and I'm actually curious if this ends up being some sort of additional thoughts that May's MVP resume includes a lot because they're winning.
It does.
And for the most part in this game, like you would rather a quarterback throw 5 touchdowns and lose than 1 touchdown and win. But knowing that there really wasn't much of a TP drop in the playoffs, getting 3-4 extra games from a player in a season matters.
Yes.
And so like May playing in like one of the worst, or playing in a division with 2 of like the worst teams in the NFL, and the Bills, who like, who knows what happens with them next season without
Yep.
Sean McDermott. And so it's like, if you're like, actually, maybe I get 20 games out of May on average instead of 18. Maybe that's the reason that he is in that. Cause like, I think you're more confident that May plays a bunch of playoff games than Prescott does, or Goff. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
And so like, how much does that actually go into the thought of, you're like, May's a young quarterback. He'll play longer than these guys, but it's like, not only that, he might play more games than them every season.
Well, it's also like, I mean, as much as you're saying all this about Drake May, like he still had 4,400 yards passing.
I was just literally, I looked that up and I was like, oh shit, I'm wrong about this.
Like the issue with Drake May, and I think that this was more of the issue with Drake May, and I don't think that this is necessarily going to always be the case. Drake May was just stupid consistent all year.
Yeah.
Which the issue is that you're going for like top one. That's what you want, because top one is so much more valuable. Whereas like Drake May probably had, let me see how many times Drake May got there. Like, all right, so Drake May, if I look at Drake May, week 2 was in the top 5, week 6 was in the top 5, week 8 was in the top 5, week 16 was in the top 5, week 17 was in the top 5. But you know what the issue was? Of those 6 times, 0 were first.
Yep.
But you're talking like I'm sure, let me look real quick at some of these. Like, let me look at week 17 and week 16. Like week 17, Drake May put up 32.4 points. Do you want to guess what the difference was between him and first?
Which week was it?
Week 17.
Oh. Those are such wonky weeks too.
Yeah,
so
he had 32.4 points.
Yeah, so that was his high all season.
Yes, but like, so he ended up 0.1 points behind first.
Oh, wow.
Of which he would have won the tiebreakers. Like if he got to a tiebreaker, he wins the tiebreaker. The week before, he got third. He had 28.7 points. Now, in like perspective, a lot of those scores are good enough to win a lot of weeks. They just didn't win that week.
Yeah.
And if you look through Drake May's scoring log, he did not have a game under 15 points, which a lot of other quarterbacks did, which isn't necessarily great. But like he had a 26. Well, the 26.3 got him a tie for second. He got 21.2. That didn't get him anything. 23.2. He had 27.2. Well, 27.2 got him second. He had like 7 or 8 games that were legitimately in potential for even first place. He just didn't get first place.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you move a couple points around on those weeks, Drake May doubles his TP during the regular season. So I think Drake May there's a really good case to be made that he should be the second best quarterback on the platform this year. Because like you're looking at right here, like he is the second highest points per game quarterback. It just so happened it just didn't quite line up for him on a week in, week out basis that he peaked enough to get those spots. So like you're getting those 2 extra games. Let's be honest, those 2 to 3 extra games are more valuable than every other game you get.
Yeah, it's almost like a negative that they're so much better in the division because you almost like they have the potential of finishing first and losing a playoff game.
Yeah, which Bo Nix did. Like Bo Nix lost a playoff game because of that, and it's so much more valuable. Like Drake May got 3 games more than Dak Prescott. Well, those 3 games, you probably, if you're estimating how much like each extra game is worth in the playoffs, you're probably talking like 6 or 7% of TP a week for those each extra games.
Because those extra games are so fewer players are playing.
Now, maybe as we add more players onto the platform, that number will change. But I'm pretty strongly an advocate of, and I'm the one making a lot of the decisions on it, that we should not be adding like 28 players and 15 quarterbacks in the offseason. So like the number of quarterbacks this season was 12. Well, maybe next season it's 14. And then all of a sudden, like that 14 becomes 15 and then 16. But like at a certain point, let's say it gets to 16 after like 2 or 3 seasons. Well, then you have these guys that are retiring. Like you're going to consistently recycle with guys that are retiring for new guys that are coming in. And then some guys are not going to be as good. You're going to have guys downturn, like a guy like Drake May. Like Drake May is 23. on a team that's pretty good. And a real key with Drake May, and this goes for any of the running backs, like Drake May has rushing upside, which realistically to hit those major peaks, you need rushing upside. Yeah. Not saying you can't get there if you're Jared Goff. Like as you see here, Jared Goff's 5th out of the 12. But it's a lot harder to get there when you purely pass, because if you're purely passing, you realistically need like 303 to get up there, which is a bit more difficult. Whereas like Drake May, let's say he adds 25 and a touchdown on the ground, really alleviates what he needs to get you through the air.
It's kind of wild. So I was looking at initially Hurts, because I'm like, Hurts runs, but he actually doesn't throw that much.
Correct.
Lamar was just really bad this year.
Well, I have concerns that maybe Lamar is just kind of dust at this point.
Yeah, because of every quarterback and how they play, the drop in production was like could be projected the easiest with Lamar because of just how much he relies on his speed.
Correct. And now I do think part of it was he was injured a lot this year.
Yeah, but like that stuff's gonna, like, a hamstring injury for a running quarterback is a lot worse than Jared Goff.
But like, yeah, you also, like, in terms of Hurts, you know why Hurts was so much worse this year? It wasn't even necessarily passing. He scored like 6 less rushing touchdowns than he has each of the other years. Well, that's like 50 points.
Yeah.
So you're talking like a legitimate chunk each game. You're talking like, what, 3 points a game that Hurts basically missed out from lack of rushing touchdowns this year. And I don't think that's necessarily something that would – he's been pretty consistently up higher. They just didn't get it on the one enough, so they didn't get enough tush pushes in.
Right.
His yardage was actually down a lot this year too, which his carry volume and his yardage was down a lot this year. That said, they had a lot of issues. Maybe they can come back a little bit from that.
Assuming like all of his receivers stay.
Well, or he gets new receivers that like being there more.
I guess. That's a team that Garrett Wilson ends up on.
Yeah. That's a potential. But no, I mean, I think the way the playoffs work had the ideas that would make sense for it. I think the offseason TP makes sense for what that was planned to do. I think everything we've added for the most part has been positive to the NFL side of things with regards to what the intended purpose of all of the things were. I think that we've had that purpose actually happen for most of them.
Mm-hmm. Is your plan to rip NFL packs all like every time the TP is distributed in the offseason?
Yeah, probably, because then you're just not really playing the market and you're just getting stuff as it goes. Also, like, it's harder to snowball if you hold packs and stuff in. The only time I held packs, I think I've held packs twice. First time I held packs was after the TGE, because I think the TGE was like on a Tuesday when rewards were coming out and like the markets were clearly going down, but it wasn't accounted for at that time. I was like, all right, I'm going to wait 1 week to open packs. Then there was another time, but I think it was before NFL came out. It was soccer only, where like the market was like just started on a massive downswing for whatever reason that day. And I was like, all right, it's clearly not in the packs this week, so I'm just going to wait a week on the packs. But I mean, if you're missing out on a bunch of player shares, you're missing out on a snowball of sorts in terms of your earnings with them.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. I don't have the patience to wait.
Yeah. No, I agree with that too.
And packs are fun. That's all.
Packs are fun.
Have you bought any fun token other than the ICO?
No, but like I pretty much had in my mind like that had what I wanted to have and that I was okay with that. I prefer what we talked about, I think last time we were on, which was probably a month ago. I personally prefer buying shares of players because I kind of understand exactly where those rewards are going to go. And I also think that the people that are like on the platform that are buying shares are people that I would more so have dictating that money than like just crypto bros that are trading in and out of on on the secondary markets with like that. Now that said, I think the upside with the fun token is better than like the upside with the players. But for me personally, I understand how I'm getting my rewards, how I'm using stuff from the player perspective. It's harder for me from the fun perspective. So like what I try to do is like I try to dictate like where am I at in terms of the rewards and getting to different tier levels. Make sure I'm at those levels for the most part. And as long as I'm there or going to get there quickly, I'm fine. If I do need to buy some to get to those levels, I will. But that hasn't happened for me yet. I've been pretty much in line with where I want to be with stuff.
Literally the only reason I'm considering it is I look at the price and then I have to think of, because I'm basically on level 4.
Yeah.
And I haven't done the math of like how much would it cost to get me to level 5.
Yep.
Because it feels like, I mean, it's a big jump. Level 4 is 15% of your fees back and 5% bonus TP. Level 5 is 25% fees back and 10% bonus TP. And I was just like,
it's totally something everyone should factor in. What I think people are struggling with though is like you have to buy it for the next week, because you're not just going to be able to buy it the day of rewards or something and jump yourself up. You're buying effectively to get there the following week. But I think that makes sense for a lot of people. Like you can pretty easily look at like your fees, because especially now, which I actually like this, it tells you as your rewards come out like exactly how much your fees are. And you can be like, all right, if I'm going to get this, I can double it from 10 to 20% or whatever. And I'm going to get this in fees. And then you can look at your TP and be like, all right, if I double it, I'm getting this much value in TP. And I think it's a lot easier to sort of dictate and have a visual on, okay, I want to get this TP so that I get up to this next level because it makes sense financially.
Yeah, I don't want to say I have no consideration for the price of the token. Obviously I do when I'm buying, but it's like once I buy it, I don't even care, because it's like I'm not buying it for the purpose of the token or increasing. It's the benefits that I get in the game.
Yes.
Like if you were in any other fantasy game and they were like, hey, if you wanted to pay $200 and for the rest of time you get 25% instead of 10% boost, whatever it is, 10% instead of 5, it's like, yeah, you would certainly consider it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. But no, I mean, I think, what are your thoughts on how this season has gone from the NFL perspective and like the mechanics that were used around injury cover, off-season TP, playoff, like how the playoff worked?
I think it's all been really well done. So congratulations on your work. But I think the one thing that a good friend of ours keeps bringing up is whether injury cover makes sense in football, like the soccer side. And I have a pretty firm stance on it, but I'm curious where you're falling on that.
What was that again? Sorry.
Like whether injury cover would work for football.
So here's the issue with the soccer side of things is like you have almost all of the key players on these teams that are used. So for example, like Lamine Yamal goes down, like you have Rafinha, you have Rashford on there already. It makes it a little bit more tricky from that perspective. Whereas like the NFL, like also the NFL like has guys that are purely like pretty useless players if someone's not injured. So it becomes a bit trickier with that.
Yeah.
So I don't handle the soccer side of things with it. So I don't want to give full opinions on things in regards to that. It would not work in the way in which the NFL works. It would have to be changed to some kind of way, but I would have to look more into that and think more on that. But even NFL, I don't think next year would work in the exact way that we have it this year. So we have to evolve it so that it functions properly again.
Yeah, I think like I understand that people want injury cover because it's like a bummer when someone gets hurt, but I think the market just kind of works that out. And the thing that I like the most, I think it's literally becoming the thing I like the most about Football.Fun is one player getting hurt doesn't completely screw 4 to 5 to 6 other players.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like Pedri gets hurt and it's like, oh, that sucks. And I have like my biggest TP week because like other people that I own shares of did well and Pedri didn't just torpedo them.
Yeah.
And I don't need like an injury cover to do. Like the injury covers just other players.
Well, the dumbest thing about So Rare is literally you have to get a 7-leg parlay right just to have your lineup be active.
Right.
Because you need to have 7 dudes in a lineup that are starting effectively. I mean, yeah, you could have a guy sub in, but like you have to have 7 dudes, or otherwise, like, yeah, Pedri. I had Julian Alvarez. Like, yeah, I had Julian Alvarez on So Rare. Like, I've won 2 in seasons. I have like 5 of his cards. So he didn't start this weekend. All right, it's like, all right, 5 lineups are dead, 35 players or whatever. I mean, some of them are in season, but like it doesn't work. Like Pedri gets injured now. You're like, all right, that sucks for Pedri, and like my Pedri shares are fucked. But it doesn't just torpedo like 20% of the rest of your holdings. Yeah. But I do think the injury cover is very nice. I think it is just nice to know that if your guy gets hurt, there is still some hope or some play with him. Like George Kittle ruptured his Achilles and sold off, but then he was bought back because people were like, oh, he's got the injury cover and it's not that bad.
Right.
And they were fine with that. So like I personally like the injury cover mechanic in the NFL. I don't know if it works as well in any other sports. I think it works in NFL because of the way that I can do things with it. But I think in soccer, and then as more sports get developed, it might work. Like maybe baseball, it would work okay. Whereas you have a cover basically for like a second baseman. So if a second baseman doesn't start, then the next second baseman is up. But I don't know. Again, I would have to look into that, and that's not something I'm looking at right now. So no real concerns. But yeah, I liked how the injury cover worked in NFL this season. I thought it worked really well. Most scenarios, obviously, if a guy got hurt, it did hurt you, but you still at least had a chance.
Right.
And that is nice to just not have just a full dead season of someone.
Yeah. So Philly Dilly, who does not play Sport.Fun, is asking what injury cover is. Basically, if you own shares of a player in the NFL, and they get hurt, you effectively get their backup. And so the example that Sean used earlier was like when CeeDee Lamb gets hurt for that next game, that Lamb is out. And this is only if they're out before the game, not if they get injured during the game.
Correct.
But if they're ruled out before the game, your Lamb shares basically convert to George Pickens shares for that tournament.
Yeah. So from a soccer perspective, like let's say it does not work this way because it's soccer, but like I'll use it as an example because you're more familiar with that. If Lamine Yamal gets hurt and the next best projected forward is Rafinha, you would then get Rafinha going forward. That's not how soccer works, but that's effectively how NFL works. So it works really well and protects you from just like eating a guy's injury and then him being out for the whole year and you just being fucked. It gets you like sometimes a worse replacement, but at least someone that could still do it for you. And like we've had some injury cover of like players that are just not great that have gotten in the top 5 on the season. Like I'll use more early in the season. Like Jaylen Warren got a top 4 early in the season. He was out and Kenneth Gainwell got there. CeeDee Lamb got hurt twice because he was out. Pickens was good twice and got there. DeAndre Swift was out. Kyle Monangai got there. Josh Love was out, and Jordan Love was out, and you got the shares from Malik Willis. So there's been moments where it's helped. Most of the time, it doesn't. You just still don't get in the top 5. But at least if you go to watch the game, you still have someone to root for and some interest in the game.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that the two big differences are there's like half the NFL players that there are than football.
Correct.
And like 18 games for the most part is super short versus a football season that is, with Champions League and all that stuff. Yeah. Since it's only the top players, you're getting 40, 50 games.
Yeah. Like, with international soccer and stuff, like I would say like an Mbappe type player, you could get like 50, 60 games out of Mbappe.
Yeah.
Something like that. Whereas like NFL, you are capped at 21 if you win the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like capped. So I think it's a good mechanic, but the issue is with the mechanic, it was set for this year specifically with the idea of we want to see how it worked and see the progression with it. The issue is that the way it worked this year is we launched it late in the season after the trade deadline when players were not going to be moving from team to team. And I made sure I limited it at 1 player per position so that each team could get the best injury cover from that team if that player got hurt. Now, that said, after this year, we already talked about Rico Dowdle. All of a sudden, let's say next year he gets traded or signs as a free agent to a team in which we already have a running back, which the odds are good that happens because we have 75% of the running backs. then injury cover becomes a bit of a trickier option. But I have ideas on how to evolve it that make logical sense that I'm probably going to look into seeing how it would work. And then I also do plan to keep the players under control in terms of how many we add to the platform. I don't plan on adding 50 players a season. I plan on adding a fair amount that make sure we get the guys that you would want to get in a given season. Like Jeremiah Love is like the best running back prospect that's coming out. Like you want to make it so that you can get him. We also have like Malik Neighbors, who wasn't included this year due to injury. I want to make sure that we can get those players on while also having scouting options to get players on as well, while also not adding 50, 60 players a season. So it's going to be a thing in which I try to work towards and come up with what the proper balance is with that. Because eventually, as you get 5-10 years down the road, you are having players just constantly recycle out, and then you just replace them as they go. But until that happens, you're just basically adding players with maybe, I think the proper like realistic view on how many players will be retiring will probably be like 1 or 2% now. And then as we go 5-7 years down the road, you're talking 10% of the player pool is going to be retiring each and every season.
Yeah, I mean, and there are going to be guys that are very, very good now that by the end of their careers, nobody wants to own any shares of.
Correct. And they will effectively take care of themselves, but we won't remove them, but they won't be as good. And then similarly, like I said, we want to make sure we're getting the new players in that deserve to be in. We'll also not just adding 50, 60 players. Like I'm not going to go, one thing we'll do, I'll say now, is like, we're not going to just add every NFL draft pick to the platform. Because like, as you said, 4th round rookie running back, like isn't going to be very good, most likely. Now, that said, let's say a receiver goes 5th overall in the draft, like he might be good day one. He might be someone you want added right away. Other guys might not be, and you might want them to have to get in via scouting. So it's stuff that we're working on internally, and then we'll continue to announce stuff as we come up with the details on it.
Yeah. Obviously, that 4th round rookie running back will be somebody's injury cover, and we'll get a top 1, and then we'll be like, hey, let's get that guy on.
But then in that situation, like maybe that player comes on via scouting. So it's different options that we got to look into.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You got anything else?
No, I think it was good. Yeah, like Laird said, we're going to try to make this a little bit more consistent. Looking at NFL and soccer on Football.Fun, and should be pretty fun going forward.
That's the plan. Thanks everyone for coming. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel so that we can get a few more people watching. Appreciate everybody coming in live to watch. Sean, good to see you again.
You as well.
See you next week. Everyone else, make sure you get outside.